Yupseo. Hello, all of my beautiful people, and welcome to the alternate point of view. My name is Tracy Lee, and I am here to guide you through this series of Murder on Joliet Place. Yes, we are still talking about the murder of Samantha Wall, who was the Jewish synagogue president leader of the Detroit Synagogue in Detroit, Michigan, in the year of 2020. to 2023. She was the president. She was also a main figure in the Democrat Party there in Detroit. She worked on several campaigns there. She worked on the Nasser campaign, I believe, and she was close in ties with Governor Whitmer, Rashida Tlaib. I think I said her name correctly. So she was well known in Detroit and in the Jewish community there. She helped rebuild that synagogue. It is the only freestanding synagogue left in Detroit. So that synagogue was on its last leg. We're going to do a special on that synagogue and Samantha's contributions and why that is so important and why I believe that plays a huge part in this case. So on October 21st, just to quickly recap, October 21st, 2023, Samantha Wall was brutally stabbed and possibly beaten in her very own townhome in downtown Detroit in the Joliet neighborhood of Detroit, Michigan, in the middle of the night or early morning hours of October 21st. So if you look at this case and you see all the twists and turns that it has taken since its inception, you will see how in the world did we end up here? How in the world did we end up at the very beginning, if you go to part one, where we start off with a press conference where the police give a statement saying that they have a suspect or suspects that they feel very confident about in this case, and that they feel that the home was not broken into. So they're giving ideas and hints that they have someone and that they feel that there is someone that they know, and they feel pretty confident about this suspect. So they say that a person of interest is actually identified, and this is on October 23rd. So I want to read this to you because it's very important why this statement was made and when it was made. So this is on October 23rd that the city's police chief emphasized that the attack did not appear to be related to anti-Semitism, yet no arrests have been made. But they say persons of interest identified in killing of Detroit synagogue leader, police say. That is what they said on October 23rd. The authorities in Detroit said on Monday that they had identified some persons of interest in the killing of Samantha Wall, 40, the president of a downtown synagogue who was found stabbed to death outside her home early Saturday. James E. White, the Detroit police chief, said at a news conference that he was just short of calling one of the people a suspect. But we are working to that end. We are confident we are on the right track, but I'm not prepared to tell you the relationship between her and the suspect as of yet, he said. Chief White emphasized that Miss Wall's killing did not appear to be related to anti-Semitism. We're confident that with the information that we have right now, that this is not, he said, adding, we do have another working theory that we're looking at where the evidence has taken us to, and we're going to exhaust that. So here we are, 2 days after the incident, after Samantha Wall was brutally murdered in her home, and they say they have someone who they are ready to call a suspect, but they're still working the angle. Now, keep in mind, this was 2 weeks, almost to the day, practically to the day, of Hamas invading Israel. That's why they're saying it's not anti-Semitic. because she was a leader in the Jewish community. So we're going to talk about more on that later in another video. But today I want to do what I said I was going to do, and that is continue this trial, because as I'm stating in this statement from the chief of police, he says they have persons of interest. They've locked down on persons of interest. And one of them, they're about ready to call a suspect. They have an angle that they're looking at. They're ready. This is 2 days in, not even 2 days in. Now, I also want you to keep in mind that Samantha was killed in the very, very early morning hours in the middle of the night of October 21st, 2023. 21st. She had her funeral services on October 22nd at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. So that autopsy was done super fast. Her body was found at 6:20 in the morning of October 21st, 2023. And she was laid to rest October 22nd at 3 p.m. Keep in mind, there are preparations that need to be done before a body can be laid to rest. So that and an autopsy. So I just want you to keep those things in mind, along with the fact that the chief of police said they have persons of interest, and one of them, he's ready to call a suspect. So let's watch the defense opening arguments, defense opening arguments, because how is it that we had a suspect possibly on day 2, basically, and here we are at this trial talking about this guy being on trial? How is that?
Now, my version and my reviewing of the facts and the evidence, I believe, will be like yours. Completely different than what the prosecutor indicates. Yes, Samantha Wall tragically died on October 21st. However, it was not Michael Jackson Bolanos who did this. She was stabbed 8 times in the neck, in the back of the head, in the back of the neck. To me, that would indicate a crime of passion. This wasn't just some random person walking into her house trying to steal anything. And another thing the prosecutor would not indicate, nothing of value was taken from her house. She had valuables. Her purse was in plain view, credit cards, cell phones, laptops, plain view. Now, I suggest if anybody came into this particular house to steal something and to stab her 8 times, surely they would have taken something of value. Another thing that the prosecutor will not mention, she was beaten up. She had contusions on her face. She had bruises on her face. She struggled. Whoever this was, she struggled with them. And this particular situation took time. This wasn't a situation that took 1 minute to do. There was evidence that there was a struggle in multiple rooms. There was fruit from the kitchen, a basket that was knocked over. There was indication that the pillows were moved on top of the blood per their own blood splatter analysis expert, who would testify that it would indicate that the pillows fell on the blood afterwards, which would indicate that there was a struggle, in my opinion. Also, there was a high concentration of blood in the hallway leading out to the front door, which in their own expert's opinion would indicate that the body was there for a time. This wasn't a 1 minute, 2 minute thing. Her body dropped after being stabbed repeatedly, and she was laying in the hallway for a period of time. You're also going to hear testimony from their detective, who will indicate from the pictures that there was a footprint that's leading to the back of the apartment. And where that footprint is, it crosses the threshold of where motion would. There's an OIC who would testify that it takes approximately 218 inches from the front door towards the motion sensor in the back to trigger the motion. These footprints were exactly in a position where they would detect the motion on the motion detection. And then the footprint goes outside. Now, the prosecutor wants you to believe that allegedly my client went in there at 4:20, stabbed her 8 times, tussled with her from room to room, and then there's no more the system went into idle mode at 4:22. We would have to agree and assume that it takes a period of time in order for the system to go into idle mode. Idle mode is where it's a lack of motion inside of the apartment for the predetermined amount of time. And once that amount of time happens with no motion, the system goes into idle mode. Now, there was tests that were done on November the 9th by the OIC Stockmeyer, along with other law enforcement. And she indicated she found out how far it would have to be for the motion to detect. Now, there was a preliminary examination, and a question was posed to her. Exactly or approximately how long does it take in order for the system to go into idle? She didn't have an answer for that. The question was asked, were you curious of that? Why didn't you determine how long? Because that could narrow down the window of how long somebody was possibly in the house. This test or question wasn't examined or asked for months after that preliminary examination to the end of April. It's when they finally determined that they wanted to know when or how long it would take for the system to go into idle mode. Now, Samantha Wall was found outside, and you would hear testimony from an individual, Kevin Moore, who indicated he touched the body to see if she was alive. Now, a question was asked of him, and he wouldn't know of whether or not when he touched that body, did he get blood on his sleeve? Now, of course, the OIC or law enforcement never did any analysis of his clothing. But I just want you to think, if they had, I'm sure they would have found trace amounts of blood on his sleeve or his clothing from just touching the body to see if she was alive or not. She had an ex-boyfriend, and you will hear testimony from him, as indicated by the prosecutor, a Jeff Herbstman, who called the police in a guilt-stricken situation where he indicated that he thought he had killed her. And not only that, that he felt that he was trying to outsmart people. Now, one of the evidences that they say that they use to clear Mr. Herbstman is the lack of his phone being in the location of Samantha Wall's apartment. I just think, if you're trying to outsmart somebody, would you bring a phone? And you also hear testimony from officers who indicated when they got a search warrant, they felt that that is a tactic that is used by certain individuals to leave their phone before going to the scene of the crime. You will also hear evidence that Jeff Herbstman's location cannot be accounted for from October the 20th at 8 o'clock until the next day. They can't even account for where his phone was at. You also hear testimony and evidence that he had a camera system in his house, that none of the pictures or footage from this camera could be obtained because they were all either deleted or the memory card was taken from there, but there was an inability to extract footage from Mr. Herbstman's camera that could suggest him leaving the location that particular night. He was arrested by Kalamazoo police. He then got on the phone with his psychiatrist, and then his story changes of what he originally said. After taking into custody, stating that he had a lawyer who he couldn't remember her name, got a call from his parents that he was in the police station. They didn't ask why he was there. And the reason why they didn't ask why he was there, because he already had told them. They secured a lawyer from him after him telling them what he had did, just like he told the police. Now, you will hear evidence or see evidence that my client was walking around the city. He was. You will hear evidence that he took a bag out from a car. You will hear evidence that there was some rubber gloves in it that he just happened to put on. You will hear evidence that there was some candy inside the bag that he was snacking on as he walked around. You will also hear evidence from a Detroit police officer, Chad Osmond, who indicated that when Mr. Jackson Bolanos was arrested, that he in fact told Officer Osmond that, yes, I was in the area. I seen somebody laying on the ground. I walked over to the body to see if they were alive, and I touched her. And I realized she was dead and ran off.
Judge, objection can be approached.
Okay, so at this point, I don't think they ever, in watching this trial, I don't think they ever had this particular police officer. I'll have to go back and watch, but I don't think this police officer ever testified, which is why he objected and had this taken out. So I'm not sure if he ever had this police officer testify, because it wasn't taped and it wasn't videoed in any way. So I'm not sure if they ever had this guy testify. So
that'll be stricken. That
yeah,
is referencing hearsay, and you're not to consider that.
I think that's wise, because it wasn't put on any record.
So you will hear evidence from their blood splatter analysis expert, who would indicate that there was a projection of blood that came from Ms. Wall that was on the wall. Now, you would see video footage of my client who left, was walking around, not covered in blood at all. You would see a copious amount of blood inside of this particular location. No shoe prints, nothing that would indicate that my client walked through a pool of blood in multiple rooms. None of my clients' clothes were ever discarded. Now, you will hear evidence that a Tierra White, in fact, washed his coat as a matter of her ordinary course of washing his clothes. She would state that he would wear this jacket, which is more akin to a hoodie, that he would wear, she would wear it, and when he comes home from wearing it, or when she comes home from wearing it, it's thrown into the dirty clothes hamper and then subsequently washed as a matter of course. Now, the telephone call that was referenced by the prosecutor is my client at that point in time had no idea she washed it. He's indicating like, hey, if I did what they said I did with all this blood, I'd have been covered in blood. It had been covered in blood. And then she makes a statement like, oh, I washed it. Unbeknownst to him, this was news to him, unbeknownst to him that she washed this particular jacket. He never instructed her to wash the jacket. He never tried to discard the jacket, throw the jacket away, the pants he was wearing, the shoes he was wearing. None of these items were ever discarded. Now, the prosecutor is going to try to submit multiple knives that my client just happened to have. One of them in an old jacket that he didn't wear for months that they found in a pocket. One of them was in another pouch, and one was on him when he was subsequently arrested the second time. These knives were sent off to be analyzed. And of course, none of the knives came back with any evidence whatsoever that would associate my client with Miss Wall or being at this particular scene. The only evidence that they have is a trace spot on the back of a sleeve. The back of the sleeve, not the front. There's no blood anywhere on the front of his jacket. There's no blood on the front of pants. There's no blood on the shoes at all. The prosecutor wants to put this theory out that it's possible because he's in the area, and that if he was looking into cars, then he must have went into an apartment to commit a murder without taking anything and violently stabbing her 8 times while beating her up. Now, when he was arrested, they photographed his body to see if he had any defensive wounds, any scratches, any evidence whatsoever that would suggest that he had been into a struggle with somebody, had been into a fight with somebody. No evidence whatsoever. Not even the small inkling. Now, my client was arrested twice. Once on November the 30th, they seized his phone, they seized his car. He made no attempt whatsoever to evade or avoid law enforcement, but quite the contrary. He repeatedly contacted the detectives asking, when can he get his property back? Calling them every single day, to the fact that I'm sure they were tired of him. Simultaneously, they had him under surveillance. Unbeknownst to him, he went about his lifestyle, going to work, going to home, taking his friend to work, made no effort whatsoever to try to leave, to conceal, or do anything whatsoever. Now, when he was questioned by the officers originally made reference to glasses that my client had previously pawned, some Cartier glasses, expensive glasses. And if anybody knows about Cartier glasses, they know that sometimes people violence happens beyond these glasses. People want these glasses. So when the police are asking him about glasses, he's thinking like, "Man, what you saying? I found these glasses. I didn't take them from anybody. I didn't rob anybody for these glasses at all." So they were being very vague. So, and he indicated, "No, I didn't rob anybody for these glasses. Why would they be talking about glasses?" So they failed to mention that was the topic of the conversation. So he's already on guard. They're already using deception tactics against my client. They then indicate that they saw him walk inside of this apartment, and they can pinpoint him being inside this apartment, which was a lie. They said they had video of him going into this apartment, which was a lie, which naturally would put him on guard and say, "Hey, if I did see her, now I don't want to say anything because now you're saying that you saw me do something that I know is untrue, so now I'm on guard. I don't even want to tell you anything because you're using deception against me." And sometimes deception begots deception. And that's exactly what happened in this particular situation. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, after all the evidence is submitted, We want you to use your logic and reasoning skills to realize that the time frame that they say that this happened in is virtually impossible. Virtually impossible for him to come in there and stab her that many times, beat her up in less than a minute, and then he's seen on camera at 4:23, not 4:24, at 4:23, walking in front of Greektown Casino, walking towards individuals who were outside, striking. Made no attempt whatsoever to conceal himself. Had he been involved in a bloody murder, surely you're not going to walk towards people. You'll be covered in blood. People would notice that as you walk by somebody being covered in blood after the way that crime scene looked. You're going to hear from a witness, James Griffin, who indicated he was sure he distinctly remembered hearing at 1:38 something that really shook him or really got to him. And he felt guilty about it. He tried to convince himself that he did not hear Samantha Wall scream or make a statement, don't do something. Maybe don't stab me, don't hurt me. He distinctively remembers and tried to convince himself that that wasn't the case because he would feel bad and he felt callous for the next 24 hours, which is around the time of when her last activity of her phone was around 1:30ish is when he heard that. He's then approached again months later by officers, and he story up and says that, oh, earlier because I got up to let my dogs out and then I went back to sleep and I have a watch to substantiate that, I guess suggesting that he went back into REM sleep. If anybody knows what REM sleep is, rapid eye movement sleep, which takes quite some time to get to, that he went back from walking his dog, from waking up, walking his dog back to REM sleep in a matter of like 4 minutes, which I would think that it was incorrect. He just wanted to convince himself that he did not hear the murder of Samantha Wall because that would be weighed upon his conscience. So, ladies and gentlemen, please pay real good attention to what you hear and just think logically. And I believe you will come back with a not guilty. Thank you.
So that is the defense opening statement. And I really want you to pay attention to the timing. Like the prosecution said that they're thinking he crossed the threshold at 4:20 a.m. And this is their timeline that they're sticking with. They're sticking with the timeline that he went into her home at 4:20 in the morning and literally in a matter of a minute, if that, killed her and left. And he was seen at 4:23, a quarter of a mile away, walking. So the timeline for the prosecution is according to her alarm system. Okay, 12:30 a.m. she returns home. 12:31, her security system indicates that her front door was open. 12:32 indicates there was motion in the living room. And then around 12:35, Michael Jackson Bolano's cell phone data shows that he's in downtown Detroit, heading eastward, whatever that means. I'm not a compass. At 1:24 a.m., Samantha's security system indicates motion in the living room again. Keep in mind, this, I believe, remember the key, her extra key was found in her house on the floor. The spare key box was unlocked. Remember at 1:01 a.m. her door was open, her front door was open. It showed open. At 1:24 a.m., there was movement in the living room. So this is when I'm thinking something happened in her townhome. At 1:29 a.m., her phone was unlocked. Also remember at 1:02 a.m. was the last sent message from her phone. But at 1:24 a.m. was the detection in the living room. And at 1:29, her phone was unlocked. At 1:29 to 1:35, her phone was on unlock. And you heard the defense attorney say right there that at around 1:35, a neighbor heard something, a woman saying, don't something or scream something, but convinced himself otherwise. I mean, they are in downtown Detroit, so they're pretty desensitized. As you heard on one of my other episodes, the 911 call sounded like they were ordering out for dinner. It didn't even sound like a 911 call. It was so calm. Even the 911 operator was like, how you doing? It wasn't even anything. At 1:42 to 1:44, they say Michael Jackson's Bolanos's phone is pinging off of Rivard Street and Nicolette Place, which is about a quarter of a mile from Samantha's home. So he hasn't gone anywhere near her home yet, though. And then around 3:50 to 4:20, they're saying that he's consistently in the geographic area. And then at 4:20 a.m., they show motion on Samantha's alarm system again, or her motion sensor again. And then 4:20 to 4:30, they see Michael Jackson Bolanos' cell phone moving in a western direction around the Detroit area, near and around the geographic area of Samantha Wall's home. So they're literally Frankensteining this together because I want to show you the video. I'm not going to show you the whole video. I'm going to show you the mapping of what they did to basically put together I just want to let you know, 100 cameras. They used the dome cameras that basically clock you when you're driving. They used cameras from different buildings downtown. They used rock cameras. They used, which is from the FBI. They partnered with several different detectives to watch video. They also partnered with the FBI to put this video together. This detective on the stand puts the video together. It's hours upon hours, over 600 hours, according to Detective, I can't remember his name, the bald-headed black detective that was so rude to Michael Jackson Bolanos. He also was supposedly helping put this video together, but he couldn't recall a lot of things. And he also passed the buck. A lot of people were passing the buck. That wasn't my job. That wasn't my job. But this detective who put this video together, compiled it together, put the video together to make it look as if Michael Jackson Bolanos was the only person in downtown Detroit that night because he matched the cell phone towers. So I want you to see how they Frankenstein this video together to match and kind of show that Michael was in the area, but it really doesn't. He's in downtown, but it doesn't show that he's in Samantha's house. It doesn't show anything like that. It just shows he's walking around downtown Detroit.
The tracking process, what's the time reflected there?
12:42 a.m.
Okay, and is this just a still image that we're looking at from that location at that time?
Yes.
So he starts here.
And what's the second location? We backtrack a moment. What's that second location?
1405 Rivard.
And moving on, is this a still image?
How do you know that's
video
him?
from that location?
Yes, it is.
And what's the time reflected here?
1:44:38, and that would be a.m.
And why is that little box that the time is in kind of disrupted compared to the rest of the video?
Because that is an actual, that's the actual correct time overlaid onto that video. Remember
Is that a modification that you made to
Modification. I want you to
reflect
hear
the
these
accurate time on the
words.
video?
yes, like I explained before, the times that weren't accurate, I wanted to make sure I could line those up to the real time. And this is an example of that.
See, this is all modified. It's all cut and spliced, modified,
And that location,
created.
1405 Rivard, how close
This
is
should
that
not
to
be
the
allowed.
scene?
Boy, do you want me to point to it, or you mean like mileage? It's quarter of a mile, like.
Okay,
Your Honor, is he speculating or did he
He's-
actually measure the exact distance from this location to the scene? Sound like he's speculating.
that's fine. I'll move on. We'll establish that later. And so between these 2 points, points 1 and point 2, are we gonna see video on the overall compilation video between those sort of points in time?
Yes, sir. Several.
Okay.
So,
I mean, look how far that
Um,
is. They're literally taking him from here to
And
here, and it's an hour,
Just moving on.
according to
what's
their
the next-
modified time.
What's the next point reflected on the map, the next location and time?
Ducharme Apartments that we were referring to.
See, this took 30 minutes according to
1544
their
East Lafayette.
modified
Okay.
time.
The time is 2:16 a.m.
And what's the significance of this screenshot reflected here at 31
Well, it's a Texas
seconds in the
tag.
video relative to?
And he say he was
that
taking pictures of
location.
cars.
So that's a photograph that was given to me, removed from a phone.
Okay,
So I think they should have taken
And,
that out. It's another
did you
thing.
do anything?
Privacy, people.
I'm gonna just jump back really quick to what's been admitted as Exhibit 48. Oops. Have you seen this video before?
Yes.
And did you do anything to look into the potential location of this video?
Yes.
And can you explain to the jury what your sort of process was to try to verify the location of this video?
Yeah. So myself and Detective Bloom, Sergeant Bloom, I'm sorry, went to the Ducharme Apartments based on the information from the owner of that car, where the owner parked the vehicle, and actually went to the parking space and found the location.
Okay, and how was it that we were able to find the specific location?
Number one, he had told us where, and then the other piece, I didn't do the analysis. There's a series of oil spots on the ground behind the vehicle that matched up with the location that we had gone to, that parking space with those spots. Very similar.
Okay.
They matched the oil spots to the car. They went through all that trouble.
And going back to Exhibit 77.
So now he's all the way over
What's the
here
next,
at
time and
3:05.
location reflected here?
The time is 3:05 a.m. and the location is White and McDougal, which is an intersection.
Okay, and again, in the overall
So that's
compilation,
almost an hour.
Video
45
between these 2 points, 3
minutes.
and 4.
Yes.
Okay, and just moving to the
How do you
screenshot
know
here,
that that is him? Can you see this
what's the
circle?
location
They
of
put a
this
circle
particular
around a
screenshot?
person.
White and McDougal.
And
thing,
what's the significance
blob.
of this particular screenshot?
If this
The
is how
individual that I
Detroit
was
does their job.
tracking, walking away from parked vehicles, carrying a bag.
Okay.
Not one
And
time
is
do
there
they
any
see him
significance
going
to that-
into an
that
actual
bag,
vehicle.
I guess going forward in the video as we move forward.
Yes.
And what's the
Yeah.
significance?
So originally, when I started in on this investigation, in that parking lot of the school, looking west, there was a person carrying a bag, and that was the bag. So I was tracking the bag backwards. And the significance is this is the point where the person picked up the bag.
Okay, and if we move forward in the video, what's the next point and time reflected in the
So
video?
it's 3320 Spinnaker Lane, and it's at 3:12 a.m.
And what's the significance of the screenshot immediately following that?
All right, that is the person I was tracking actually going over that wall, climbing that wall, and then from there, that person then stepped onto the parking structure located on the right side of the screen.
And are you personally familiar with this specific area that's depicted here?
Yes, sir.
And is that parking garage that's shown here, is that something that's open and accessible to the general public?
No,
Is it secured?
it's secured, yes.
Okay, and how about the parking garage at the Ducharme place that was previously referenced? Is that something that's open and accessible?
No, it's
How
not.
do you know what
It's
that
secured
is?
Okay.
Does that look like an identifiable person?
And what's the next date and time reflected here?
also. That is the date. It's all October 21st, 2023. It's 3:24 a.m. and that is 3171 East Jefferson.
And that time that's reflected there at 3:24, is that the system time from the camera or the real time from the camera?
That's the system time.
Okay, what would the real time correspond to?
I believe that camera's 4 minutes off. 4 minutes. and
4
seconds
minutes
off.
off.
And I guess what's the significance of this screenshot associated with that time and in place?
Yeah, so this is from Pizza Populous, which is a business there, and this would have been again following the timeline. This is the individual that then came up past this camera during the night.
Okay.
So
And,
there's his
What's the next location and time reflected?
Homicide scene.
Okay.
That is,
Homicide scene.
October 21st, 2023, 4 a.m.
that's not the homicide scene, by the way. That's the Lafayette area.
And that brief video that was
The homicide
that
scene
played,
is
what was the
Joliet.
significance of that video?
The significance was the person had walked across from right to left. That video slowed down because it happened really fast. And the person walks in front of a light colored vehicle, appears to be carrying some type of light object.
And is this at 4 a.m.?
4 a.m. Yes, sir.
This could
And
be
between
someone
4
that
a.m.
lives in
and
the
4:20
complex.
a.m., was there any other video that you were able to identify?
Nope.
Okay.
Can you
Well,
identify
okay,
this person?
This video continued to run through motion, but I was not able to identify any other people.
Okay. Were you able to identify the subject that you were tracking in video between 4 a.m. and 4:20 a.m.?
No, I wasn't.
And if we go to the next point, what's the location and the time of the next point reflected here is number 8?
The time is 4:24
See,
a.m.
way over here.
Location is 1211 Chrysler.
Yeah.
And where is that located relative to the crime scene?
That is to the west of the crime scene, so it's on the west side of 75.
Okay.
Way over here.
And in the screenshot, can you see where 375 is in relation to the subject?
Yes, sir.
And where's that?
It's at the top of the screen. There's a guardrail. It's on the other side of that.
Okay, and so coming from the crime scene, would you have to cross over the freeway to get to this point?
Yes.
Okay. And what's the time again of this?
I don't recall. Can we go back to the screen fire? And this is 4:24 a.m.
And do you see the what appear to be the shoulder straps on the individual at this point?
Yes.
Before this point in time, were those, I guess, visible in any other videos that you observed of this individual?
Not prior, no.
Okay. And what's the next point reflected here and the time?
Yeah, this is 421 Madison, which is 36th District Court. It's October 21st, 2023, and it's 4:29 a.m.
Okay, so would it be fair to say this is moving west from the last point?
Yes.
Okay. And
Does
I
he
guess
look
what's the significance
like he has
of this
any blood
screenshot
on
that follows that
him
point?
This
at
is the person
all?
that I was tracking.
Okay, and that would be at the 36th District Court location?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Anything? Does he look like he just got into a brutal fight?
And then
With
what's the next
someone.
point and time reflected here?
It'd be Cass and Charlotte, which are streets. It's an intersection. 4:45 a.m.
He didn't change his
And
clothes.
if when we look at the overall compilation video, are we going to see video between points 9 and 10?
Yes.
And what's the significance, I guess, of the screenshot that follows at that point in time?
This is beyond the 36th District Court.
Yes.
Okay. This is the individual I was tracking, walking north on Cass.
Okay. And what's point number 11? What's the location and the time associated with that?
This is 454 West Alexandrian as an apartment building, and it is 4:55 a.m.
And is that the same as the point of origin?
Yes. That's what it
And
says.
again, when we look at the overall compilation video, are we going to see more video footage from between points 10 and 11?
Yes.
So he comes home.
And the screenshot immediately following point 11, what's the significance of that?
That is a person coming into the building.
I want to publish.
So I just want to show you that little bit. I don't want to show you the entire video because it's a very long video, but you can see just off of the pre-video that they basically take this circle, and that's what they're going to do throughout the entire video. But as you can see from just the breakdown, like they do it in chapters a little bit of where you see he is at in the downtown area, they're trying to cut and splice and put him in places in the time frame that matches their narrative. I just want you to imagine your son, your daughter, that they could do this to you. They could make a map and time and match it to you and put you in that defendant chair. Put your son, your child, your relative, you in that defendant chair just to match a narrative that they need to spin. Never mind the person who actually confessed to killing her. Never mind trying to wrap that narrative around. Never mind what they said in the beginning of this whole situation when they said they had someone that they thought was a suspect, someone they thought they could actually call a suspect. Remember when the chief said, "We are confident we're on the right track, but I'm not prepared to tell you the relationship between her and the suspect as of yet." And this was on October 23rd, 2023. And here we sit in June, July of 2024, which is how long this trial has been going on. And they have Michael Jackson Bolanos on trial for the murder of Samantha Wall, because they Frankenstein together a video to match a time frame of this poor guy walking through downtown Detroit to say that he killed her. And they gave the guy who said he did kill her immunity. In my experience of watching trials and in my experience of seeing Dateline in 2020, along with all of the millions of other people that have watched those shows, in none of those times have they ever given immunity to anyone who was innocent. Ever. So I am asking you all to look at this with open eyes, open ears, and listen to what each of these witnesses say. Listen to the actual crime. Look at what actually happened, and look at the person that's on trial. Look at the timing that we're in. I know it seems like tinfoil hat, but wait until the next video, you guys, when really the tinfoil hat comes on, because I'm telling you, something stinks. Something is going wrong here, and it is all at the expense of Samantha and Michael. It is sad and it is unfortunate that everyone is turning their backs on what really happened to Samantha Wall, that Michael is taking the fall. I feel terrible for the entire situation. And what's worse is her family truly, truly believes that, or at least on the surface, they believe that Michael is the one who did it. And they don't want to believe what actually really happened to their daughter. And I think that that is terrible. And I think it's really sad, because in the next video, you'll see why, and you'll understand why this is terrible, this is happening. But tomorrow, the trial continues on Monday with Michael fighting for his life, back on the stand, and his attorney continuing to ask him questions, and then he will be on cross with the prosecution. And we are praying for Samantha and her family. We are praying for Michael and his family. We are praying for everyone involved, because as I have stated, there are no winners in this situation. And I will repeat again, as I have repeated in every video, that this was national, international attention when this occurred. Samantha was well known. She had many, many friends. She was smart. She was beautiful. She was highly, highly sought after, not just professionally, but personally. She was just a great person. From all I've heard and seen and read, she was just a great person, a great soul. And, you know, it's sad because Detroit is kind of a yuck place from what I've heard, but Samantha brought light to Detroit, and it's exactly what they needed. And the light was burned out on October 21st, 2023. And I hope whoever did this knows that. I hope they know what they did, and I'm sure they know what they did. But the wrong person is on trial. And when you get to the next episode, you'll understand and see why Samantha has got to be absolutely just screaming from wherever she is with God and saying, this is not right. This is not right. And everyone who knew her knows this is not right. But there's only a few that will be willing to speak out and say this is not right, because there are so many that know Samantha, actually know her, and know this is not right, but are afraid to speak up. There are very few that will speak up. So I'm asking you and anyone who watches these videos, anyone who sees this on TikTok, anyone who sees this on the news, anywhere, please speak up and speak out, because it is highly, highly important that we don't send an innocent man to prison. So speak up, speak out. This was national attention again, the White House press conference, okay? And now nothing. So let's talk about it, people. Let's find out who actually killed Samantha. Whatever the turnout is next week in this trial, we're praying for Michael that he goes home, but we're praying and hoping that we find out who actually killed Samantha Wall. I thank you all for watching. I hope that anyone with any information will come forward and let us know what actually happened to Samantha. Jeff got immunity, but there's someone out there. If it's not Jeff, that's fine. I'm not trying to say that it is Jeff, but I do find it very strange that he got immunity. I do find it very strange that he confessed and had an attorney ready to go. I do find it very strange that the police just dropped it. When they said they had a suspect and there was a relationship, they inferred that there was a relationship between her and the suspect. And this was on October 23rd, 2023, you guys. So I thank you all for watching, and I appreciate your time. I will see you in the next video. 감사합니다. Thank you.